Amitakiapi, Leampetuashte. I'm Shirley Snavy. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services began laying off as many as 10,000 people last week. How does this impact Indian country? Jordan Bennett Begay spoke with Abigail Echo-Hawk from the Urban Indian Health Institute.
I'm joined here with Abigail Echo-Hawk, who is the director of Urban Indian Health Institute, to talk about the recent layoffs that are happening within the U.S. Health and Human Services Department. Thanks, Abigail, for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
The most recent news is that employees within the U.S. Health and Human Services Department received notices of being laid off. And this will affect approximately 10,000 people across the health agency. Abigail, what is going on? How will this impact tribes, Native people? Can you put this into perspective for us?
This morning, my team and I received an email from our partners at the CDC letting us know that they were all being laid off from the Healthy Tribes division of the CDC. So this is a group specifically put together to address chronic disease prevention and support tribal communities, urban and rural, in doing everything we can to make our people healthy. And in fact, this is supposed to be an initiative of the new secretary, Robert Kennedy. And he has said that he is devoted to chronic disease prevention and specifically focusing on that in Indian country. This is the exact opposite of everything he's been telling us. The dissolving of this specific program means that our teams do not have the support we need to prevent chronic disease within our communities. This just happens to be one specific instance when they are taking away the resources that Indian country needs and that we have a prepaid benefit for. Our prepaid benefit is quality health care, is addressing the health and well-being of our people that's in our treaties. So this is a direct violation of the treaty and trust responsibility. Across HHS, there are little pockets that provide resources, training, technical assistance, and we're seeing layoffs happen there, and it will impact Indian country. We need to be very careful about where they are dissolving and erasing programs specifically for Indian country, because again, this is part of the treaty and trust responsibility, and we need to ensure that we are always fighting for tribal sovereignty. And right now, we are in the fight to ensure that we maintain the resources we deserve. This is a specific program and one of the only ones within the CDC that is specific to support Indian country. And so the role of this office is just Indian country. And when they dissolve that, and right now we're hearing that they're going to try to put all of these programs into other programs across the CDC, we're not another racial or ethnic group. We are tribes. We are sovereign nations. We are enrolled members of federally recognized tribes. And under treaty and trust responsibility, the federal government has a different kind of responsibility to us. And we fought for a program like Healthy Tribes at the CDC, and we need to ensure that it remains as it fulfills, again, the treaty and trust responsibility.
The CDC works with tribes and the tribal epidemiology centers in terms of data, in terms of communication, and trying to, expand the resources they have for Native people. How will these layoffs affect that?
With the notice of the Healthy Tribes being dissolved, that means that we don't have program officers to call and figure out whether or not the opportunities and the resources we're providing to our communities fit the funding. We're going to have a harder time submitting changes to our budgets. It's going to be difficult to reach somebody who's going to have the knowledge of Indian country and the ability to support us with the resources we've been allocated. And in fact, many of the prevention programs, the chronic disease prevention programs are congressionally mandated. And so this also has the potential to go against what Congress said in a bipartisan way. They said, hey, we need to assist Indian country. We need to fulfill treaty and trust responsibility. We need to get these resources to Indian communities, both urban and rural.
And do you know how many positions this affects in that program?
They have not released exactly how many positions. I'm hearing right now, but I do not have official confirmation that it's about 80%.
Well, thank you, Abigail, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
In the Pacific Northwest, the Puyallup Tribe is investing in its future. Based in Tacoma, Washington on the Puget Sound, it announced a major investment in a seaport. Stuart Huntington has this report.
The Puyallup Tribe is aiming to open the first deep-water shipping port in Indian country. The tribe owns big tracts of waterfront in Tacoma, Washington, following its 1989 land claim settlement. It recently announced a $200 million plan to construct the Puyallup Tribal Terminal to expand the capacity for shipping in the Seattle-Tacoma area. The new terminal will be jointly operated by the tribe and the Northwest Seaport Alliance that operates facilities throughout the region. It will be built adjacent to an existing port facility operated by the Alliance, whose co-chair called the new venture a groundbreaking partnership. I'm joined here now by Matt Wadhwani, the Puyallup Tribal Enterprises CEO. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
This is some pretty exciting news, Matt. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's happening at the port?
We got this property probably over 30 years ago as part of our land settlement, and the goal has always been to develop a deep water port given its location. And it's got, 140 acres, and we've been working very closely with the Northwest Seaport Alliance to form a partnership. And after, several months of discussions, we found a way to make a deal work, and where we can get the training and the technical expertise to get this facility up and running. And the port can help us help provide customers, and we'll have the workforce. And basically what it is they have EB1, East Blair 1 terminal, which mostly does, or actually all it does is roll on, roll off cargo, project cargo, break bulk terminal. And we're going to essentially replicate that or expand it and build a second pier adjacent to that pier on about 22 acres on the tribe's land. And so with the Port of Tacoma and the Seaport being right adjacent to us, a partnership just made sense on many levels.
You said that roll on, roll off. What goes through this kind of facility?
So roll on, roll off would be like automobiles, construction equipment, other heavy machinery.
What do you see going out? Or do you see things going out of this terminal as well?
Yeah, it would essentially have the same capabilities for exports. And the tribe is currently working on several manufacturing ventures or acquisitions, and hopefully one day down the future, we'll have our own products to export. And even to take it a step further, if we can discuss with other tribes, we can help with their international trade capabilities.
And that's where I think this is super exciting. The possibility of having a tribally owned international seaport that could be a hub for exports.
That would be great. That's the dream scenario. I mean, right now we're still in the early development stages, but when we look at our whole economic development focus, not only is it about revenue diversification, but also by setting an example for other tribes and making sure that we're helping all of Indian country.
The tribe years ago dedicated itself to climate-friendly development.
Correct. I believe it was 2019 we signed a climate emergency climate resolution.
And this development, you guys talk about being climate-friendly, carbon neutral. How are you going to go about that?
Correct. And so, I mean, the tribe and historically, we're always very good stewards of the environment, and this will be no different. And so when we're looking at going carbon neutral at this port, it could be anything from onshore power for when the ships are berthed, plugging in instead of using the diesel engines, electric equipment, they call it port electrification, so electric top handlers, making sure we're doing biological assessments for the environment. And so just finding every way possible to make this carbon neutral. And back in the day, ports were developed a lot different than they are today. So just being modern and making sure we're using all the resources available to go carbon neutral.
And I also understand that you have a workforce development element in your plans to benefit tribal members.
Absolutely. That was one of the non-negotiable points when we were working with the Seaport on this partnership, because getting tribal members trained and jobs is incredibly important. And so their willingness to essentially set up a program where tribal members can even get into management to give us that skill set is incredibly valuable. And I always tell people that, you know what you know and you know what you don't know. And, we can set up a port, but we don't have the skill set to do it. So being able to partner with the Seaport and them willing to help us set up that workforce development program is very important. And we're thankful for that.
That's great. Well, Matt, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. And I appreciate your interest in the tribe, and we hope to keep sharing more.
Thanks, Stuart. We'll hear more about the Puyallup Tribe and its investment in the Lushootseed language later in the newscast. Now to Montana, where a bill to establish an official Indigenous Peoples Day is making its way through the legislature. It passed the Senate in February and in March cleared a House committee. It awaits action by the full House. Jarek Olson from the University of Montana Journalism School has more.
Montana State Senator Shane Morjo sponsored a bill that would recognize Indigenous Peoples Day alongside Columbus Day as a legal holiday in Montana.
We really wanted to create a day where, people want to celebrate Columbus Day, they still can, but we wanted to have a day where people who, recognize or have different opinions about that, they can celebrate something different, and we can recognize it as a holiday that, represents everybody.
Morjo said the Senate hearing on the bill showed wide support for the idea of the dual holiday.
I think everybody that came together did a really good job of messaging on what this is and what it means to people, and I think future generations and kids down the road like me when I was a kid are just going to have a better informed perspective of the world and themselves.
Morjo introduced similar bills in the 2021 and 2023 Montana legislature sessions, but they were unsuccessful. Morjo says the initial response this year has been positive. If passed into law, Montana would celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day as an annual state holiday on the second Monday in October. Reporting from the homelands of the Salish, Calypse, and Kasanka people, I'm Jarek Olson, reporting from the School of Journalism at the University of Montana.
Hello, my name is Chris Briden. I am a language teacher for the Puyallup Tribe of Indians.
Did you grow up speaking the language?
I was lucky to hear my grandpa speak the language. He was one of our last speakers of the language. And so I was lucky to be hearing and making those sounds as a young kid. And it makes it actually kind of hard to teach because I'm kind of like, well, do it again, but do it right this time. So I have to really work hard to teach those sounds now.
Who do you teach? Babies, teenagers?
So our language department's main focus is adults. The idea is that we're trying to revitalize the language, and so we're trying to restart that connection between a parent and a child in the home. And so I, for example, teach mainly adults, and we use a nesting system. So we talk about all kinds of things that an adult would talk about in their home, like brushing teeth and washing the dishes and taking a bath. The idea being that now the adult, the parent, is going to teach those things by using them with their children, or grandchildren for that matter. So mine are mainly adults. I do teach some classes at the Grandview Early Learning Center, but actually I teach the teachers there, so I still teach adults. We do have some of our faculty that do teach the children at Grandview, and in the past, my department has taught classes at Chief Leshai schools. I used to teach there. 6 through 12 are the grades that we taught there. But since then, one of our teachers actually left us to go teach there as well. So he's certified by our program, but he is now a teacher at Chief Leshai. He's a very talented young man.
Well, I think it's just awesome that the tribe's making this investment in relearning the language, because it's just so important to be able to think that way, in your tribal language, because it ties you to the earth and your environment and your relatives too. So
exactly, yeah. Thank you for saying that. It's so true. Since studying Lushootseed, you literally think differently. You probably know this as well, but I heard this about most native languages, is that it's very much verb centered. So everything is an action, and you can conjugate rocks and conjugate trees and things like that. And so to think of everything around you as being in motion or in an action just changes the way you look at everything. And then you also said the connection to the earth. A lot of our words are onomatopoeias, and so they're imitations of natural sounds. My favorite one is the word for salt water is huolch. And what it is, it's the sound of waves breaking on a rocky beach. We don't have sandy beaches around here. They're all rocks. So it's huolch, huolch. So the ocean literally says its name. So that's my favorite one. Yeah. Another one of my favorite words is the word for seal. And I first saw it written, and it looks like offs. Offs. And I was like, oh yeah, that's funny. And our teacher said, no, it's pronounced offs. I was like, oh, there you go. That's where it is. I think probably my favorite line that I heard is from our creation myths, our changer, not myths. They are facts according to our elders. Our creation history. When the changer came down from the sky, he was a young man, he was a baby, and he became a young man. But then the phrase that I think it was Andrew Sanders used was, O quod atisiaios. O quod atisiaios. That means he was grabbed by his work. And I use that in my life when I feel like, why am I even doing this? Or, no, I never ask that. But I always remind myself, quod chud atisiaios. No, quod chud atidsiaios. I have been grabbed by my work. And it just kind of tells me that I have work to do that I didn't choose. It was chosen for me. So that's a way to motivate myself. Yeah. I think because of the position I've been put in, like being able to hear the language as a child, I was given that work to keep teaching the language. So I think that's probably my favorite phrase. O quod atisiaios, he was grabbed by his work, or quod chud atidsiaios, I was grabbed by my work. My other favorite phrase, my third favorite, I have three top three, is labtsabut. And I like that one because people keep saying that our language died out. Well, it never actually did, because I heard all of my aunts and uncles would always say labtsabut, and it literally means like, watch yourself. And it's part of a larger phrase, which is ha quad sis labtsabut. And so that they did is they cut off some of the syllables. So what that means is watch over yourself well. And so they were just saying, watch yourself, labtsabut. And so that shows to me that the language was never disrupted. And that in itself, I think, is important. But I think what is more important to me is that it demonstrates that people were caring for each other all the way back to the beginning of time, because that's the word that came through was watch yourself. It showed that they cared about you. They never stopped caring about you. And they couldn't even take that away, even though the whole force of the United States government tried to take that from us. That expression of take care of yourself never was disrupted. So I think that's why I like that phrase as well.
Thank you, Chris Briden.
You asked some really great questions, and I feel very happy about what we talked about.
I think my whole life I've really wanted to learn about who I am. Even though I didn't know my father, and even though I didn't have that opportunity to really learn about his culture, it's been hard feeling like, yeah, that's hard. I'm not alone in the way I feel, that a lot of us share that same background of feeling disconnected from our culture, from feeling like we're not enough. I am enough, and I have the strength to grow, and I have the strength to find out who I am and contribute, just providing those opportunities for other people with paths like myself. And that's, I think, what I love so much about what I do now. My name is Shandee Dixon. I'm Apache, and I am a microbiologist. I love what I do. I love mentoring and working with students. It's been amazing transitioning from being a bench scientist to education where I can actually give back. I'm here to be that ladder to help people climb up to where they want to be. I thought I wanted to be an artist, but when I was in community college, I took a microbiology class and I fell in love. We had assignments where we would look through microscopes, and I just remember looking at all of the beautiful structures, and it reminded me of my love of art. There's art in everything. There's art in bacteria, viruses. There's art within our bodies, and just how we function. And I kind of drew that connection between art and science. That was it for me. I wanted to be a microbiologist. I really wanted to build awareness around health inequities. Bringing that perspective into the work that I do enables me to change the way we think about science, to change the way we think about medicine. And I think that brings in the Native perspective as well, where it's about relationship building. It's about telling our stories. Everything that we do is related to our healthcare. Tribal Health Scholars is amazing. I think it's about being supportive and uplifting, and it's the experiences that you have. It's the creativity that you have. It's the questions that haven't even been asked yet. That's what we're trying to do, is provide those opportunities so that your voice is heard, so that you have the ability to make those changes, make those decisions, to be doctors, to be scientists, to be policy leaders. Because you have it in you, you have the ability, you have the capacity. So don't compare yourself to anyone else's journey. You're on your own path.
There's another murder in the Red River Valley, and Cash Blackbear is on the case. Ojibwe author Marcie Rendon has a new book in the crime series that stars a young woman trying to survive. Take a look. Marcie Rendon is a writer of fiction, plays, and poetry. She's probably best known for her murder mysteries. Cash Blackbear is at the center of solving crimes. The novels are set in the 1970s in the Red River Valley. Cash is a young woman trying to find her way in the world.
With Cash, I think that she is just about every Native woman that I've ever known. You know, and when you look at in the Native community, it's the Native women who are making things move forward. And with the missing and murdered Indian women issue, you know, it's the First Nations women up in Canada who are the ones that stepped up and said, what the hell is going on here? We need to do something. These are our women. We are going to do something. You know, there's all this talk about historical trauma, generational trauma from the 40s, and all of that is true. But if we weren't as resilient as we are, and that's, if I'm trying to write anything about Native people, that's what I'm trying to write, is about our resilience and our strength. And then Native women's capacity, people are learning things. You know, like they're learning about boarding schools, they're learning about ICWA, they're learning about the Freedom of Religion Act, they're learning about the missing and murdered Indian women and the crisis that's happening. That I'm writing things that I know. And so that's why all of the books have author's notes at the end, so that people can learn further, look things up.
Marcie Rendon also writes children's books.
With Stitches of Tradition, I literally woke up after being asleep, had the idea for the story, wrote it, and went back to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning and read it, I thought, well, this isn't bad. So the story is about a grandmother that's sewing ribbon skirts, and the granddaughter grows taller and the grandmother grows shorter. That's like the underlying piece of the story. But the other thing that's in there, her aunt becomes a judge. And so there's a ceremony for her. So it's not just a ribbon skirts. There's like women who are moving forward, doing things in their life that people don't think of us as Native people doing. Like, they don't think we exist. I had somebody ask, how come the grandmother isn't using a treadle sewing machine? I said, because she has electricity. It's like, oh my God. And I don't want to be rude, you know, but come on. I have electricity. But people don't realize that. And I think that with children's books, there's the possibility to say some of this to non-Native people.
She's a lifelong student of the Ojibwe language.
Well, when I was little, everybody in the house spoke Ojibwe. And then by the time I came along, people were speaking English. And so that's what I learned was English. And since I've been 18, I've taken Ojibwe lessons. but I think that you have to be immersed in it in order to actually learn it. But I think what's important is continuing to try to learn it. I don't think that we should be shamed for not knowing it, because it's not our fault that we don't know it. It was intentionally taken from us. And I'm too irreverent, I think, to be considered an elder, because there are so many things that I don't necessarily agree with. You know, like, I'm not sure that I believe in a creator that can't tell if I'm a woman, if I'm wearing a skirt or not. But it's this kind of rigidity that, in my opinion, mimics the rigidities of boarding school. When people say, you have to do this, you have to do that, you know. And I honestly don't think that we would have survived as a people if that had been our attitude in life pre-contact.
For ICT from the homelands of the Dakota and Ojibwe, I'm Shirley Snavy. And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.